Before you go out and buy yourself a router table, check out this one I made for a fraction of the cost. Stay tuned because it's coming up right now. Yes, I was going to buy myself a router table, and the only issue is that the router table wasn't compatible with the router I wanted to use on the router table. And then I'm looking on YouTube and there are loads of videos on how to make your own router table. So I thought I'm going to make my own and I can make it exactly how I want it. So let's get into it right now. The first thing I set about doing was making the table frame, and you can make this however you like. I just wanted to keep it looking the same as the fixed bench and the two other mobile benches that I've got in the workshop. This first section that I'm making here is the top, and I'll show you how that's going to look in just 1 second. The reason I've made it like this is because this is going to form the top, and I've already cut the size that I want my router table top, and that's going to sit on there like that. And what you need to imagine is the router is going to be under here. So I wanted as much open space here as possible, but this will still give it a little bit of strength, bit of rigidity, and it looks quite nice. So I do have a couple more rails to put in here. Let's go along here and here, but already you should be able to start getting an idea of how that's going to look. Now your router table is going to want to be nice and sturdy on the floor, and not every floor is completely flat. So what I've done on this bench, as you can see, and I'm doing exactly the same on this, is putting these adjustable feet on. So just drill a big hole, put the sleeve in, and then you can just screw that in, and you can level the table to any, you know, unevenness if you like. Now the table doesn't have to be completely level, as in spirit level, laser level, but it does need to be sturdy and not wobbling all around, and this really will fix that. So all I'm doing here is just finding the center of these legs, and then we're just going to stick a 13mm drill in. Pop the sleeve in, give it a whack, and then in goes your foot. I'll put a link for these in the description box below, along with all the other bits I'm using for this table. So there we go, like a little bit wobbly, but adjust 1 foot. Perfect. The next thing I'm doing is cutting down this shelf to fit on those rails. And then just mark and cut for the legs. I guess I should have really marked this on the underside so I get less breakout, but I'm really not too worried, to be honest. What I will do though is just use the square, speed square, to give me a nice straight line. I'll clean that up later. And this is the moment of truth. Oh yeah, like a glove. So this piece here I put in as a brace to make sure that this doesn't move too much. But what I did before I screwed this in, I put this rail here, screwed this, then put this rail here. So this measurement is exactly the same all the way through. I've just cut this piece, which is a brace for the back. This is the top, this is the back, and it's going to give it even more rigidity, particularly this way, because as you're pushing through the router, it is going to put pressure on it this way. So this will hold it really steady. So we're just going to put some screws in here. So I've got some braces to go on the side here, and again this is going to stabilize it this way, but also join up all these pieces here. Again, just giving it much added strength. So I'm nearly ready to machine the top. The bench itself, the table itself is made. I've got the top, but it's not fixed yet, but everything else is done. What I've been doing on here is marking things. Now, what I want to show you is my router that I'm going to be using for this router table. And what I've also previously made is this. I basically bought this, I think it's 6mm black perspex. It was this size, which was perfect actually, and the holes that I've drilled out in this, and of course the center hole, is exactly the same as this router. So I use this as the template because this router unfortunately will not go in the particular router table that I was looking at for a while, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to make my own. I've put in some holes and countersunk holes around the edge here on this perspex too. So if I put this out the way for a moment, and you can see here that I've marked exactly where I want this to go. This middle section here is going to be completely cut out, and then this outer section here is going to be rebated, allowing this to sink down, be screwed in, and then that will all be completely flush. What I've also done is made a few bits here. This is my fence and extractor port. So I've basically cut 4 right angle pieces of plywood, which are all the same, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I've done is with this one, I've basically just put a piece of ply in between 2. I've doubled it up and I've cut a hole which is perfect for my shop vac, which will go straight in there. So what I've got here is a base, a fence, and then this goes in here, and then these 2 will go here. So that will then create my fence, which will be turned round this way, like so. So there will be where the cutter is, so that will be fixed somewhere about there. But I am going to have this moving and sliding, so I have also got some T-track. The T-track is going to go, I haven't marked where it's going to go yet, but the T-track will go somewhere about there, which will then allow the fence with some T-bolts that I've got, which will slide into here, something like that. So I'll be able to tighten the base down into the T-track, and I can have the fence in whatever position I want. So that's coming up real soon as well. As I say, I've marked it almost all out. I'm just going to mark these up, and then I'm going to rebate or groove these out and then cut all this out. So let's get on with that. I'm using my new DeWalt cordless router to do this rebate. Now I've got the base plate cut out into the top. I haven't screwed it down yet, it's just sitting there for now. What I need to do next is work out where I'm putting these channels. So I've got the base part of the fence in the right position. I've worked out, or just kind of eyed up really, roughly where I want these supports. That one's in the middle. So I don't want to put this channel too close to here, and also don't want to put it too close to here because I want to be able to get my hand in there to actually wind it up. So I reckon I'm going to put it right about there. That gives me plenty of room, and that's quite a lot of space there. So I'm going to call that 50 millimeters from the edge of the base plate to the edge of this. Now, in order to groove this out, I have just found myself a 30 millimeter straight bit cutter, and guess how wide this is? 30 millimeter. That's a big cutter, and you need to go slow with big cutters. I'm going to do it in lots of takes. I don't need to keep moving the fence or the guide that I'm going to use, so I can just keep going backwards and forwards. So let's crack on with that. Now I just need to chisel out and get that square. Oh yeah, I know what's going to happen though. If I put that all the way in, I'm not going to get it out again, but I know that's going to work well. And that size cutter is absolutely perfect, and I've got that depth just right. It's a fraction below the surface, which is exactly what I want. Now, because this T-track is quite deep and I'm only using 18mm ply for the top, it does mean that it hasn't left me with much stock here. This is turned upside down, by the way. And what I'm a little bit worried about is it flexing slightly, but also I'm not going to be able to get any fixings in it. I can't really rely on it going through about 4mm, maybe 5. It's not enough. So what I'm doing is I've cut these 2 bits of ply here, and I'm going to place them directly underneath where the rails are going. I'm going to glue and screw them, so it's going to make this a little bit more solid, and it will give me something to screw into and make it all work a little bit better. There, so that's now made that a little bit more solid, and that is going to be screwed in to the top all the way around there as well, so that's really going to hold that tight. So we got that there, we've got our plate, we've got our 2 rails going in. So I'm going to get these fixed in and get the top fixed to the frame. And I'm going to put these in by hand because I really don't want to over tighten them. I want to make sure they grip really well, so I haven't piloted them much at all. And I know exactly how tight they are, and if I do it with an impact driver, it may end up spinning, and then I've got to put bigger screws in. These are the screws that came with it. They're not great, but they are Phillips. They're Phillips screws, and they're size 4s, which means they're a little bit thicker. This end one is actually going to be going into the table itself. So I'm going to leave that one out for now, and you'll see why I left quite a big gap there, because that is going to be screwed into the back here. I've got some really old screws here. I've had these years and years. I've got some size 4s, 16mm, and again these are silver, they're size 4 and they're going to work really well. There's no movement in this, as in this is not going to be lifted. All the weight is going down, so I don't need to worry too much about this like I do the rails. But I did countersink these when I made this. I did countersink these quite deep, so they sit below the surface, which is obviously really important. One of the things I was a little bit worried about was how strong this was going to be, and actually once the router's on there and that's all bolted to the router, it's going to be really strong. So I'm really quite happy with how it's turning out. Okay, let's get the top fixed to the frame. Just going to put these two back in now, because they can screw slightly into the frame. So I've completely measured around the top on the frame, so it's an equal spacing all the way round, which is always a good thing. Yeah, that's nice. So I'm going to have these big 550 screws in the top. I mean, it would be nice if I didn't. I'm not too worried about having them on there. They're going to be sunk under the surface, but if you were a little bit disappointed with that, I mean, because it does look really nice, doesn't it? And I'm going to be putting some screws in the top, but you could always put some blocks underneath, some right angle brackets or something like that. So do not fear if you don't want it like this. Now the top is fixed, I can take this piece off that I put on as a brace. There we go. So as I mentioned earlier, we've now got plenty of room here without any of the frame getting in the way, so that works really nicely. The next thing I'm doing here is putting my fence together. So I've marked on the base part of the fence where my supports and vacuum box is going. So I'm going to drill some holes in here, get these fixed, and then I'll attach the front to the box. And then we should be able to screw the front of that on. So there we've got our 2 holes. Give those a quick sand. And we've got it on the wrong way round. Come on, JB. Find the bolt. And there we go. Right. Washers on. So we can undo those, loosen them off, and we can move our fence whatever position we want and do those up, and that's solid. We are almost there with the router table build. What I have done off camera is I've just put these bits of ply in here around the base shelf, just so nothing can fall out whatever I put in there. So that was pretty straightforward doing that. Now, as I've said already, this is the router I'm using. This plate here, this perspex, I've already pre-drilled for these holes right here, and I've tested it already, so that's all good. But what I've also done is stripped it down, taken all the bolts and bits and pieces out, because I don't really want them on there. I don't want them getting in the way, and I want maximum space to get in here to the collet and tighten it and what have you. So what we're going to do now, hopefully, is just flip that upside down and connect it to the base. I've had to do or make some more, cut some more bolts. So I'm just going to put a couple of those in like so. This could be a little bit tricky at first because they're quite short, but I do think I've got one in there already and another, so I think I've located it, which is good. Thought that was going to be a lot harder. There we go, we've got 6 of these going in. So I know this table, I can let go of that now, it's good. So I know this table's got lots of screws in that you can see, but I don't care about that. I care about having a really good router table, and I'm really pleased with how this is going, or gone, because it's basically finished. What I will do is periodically check these, because you definitely don't want them coming loose. So these are the old bolts that came out of the thin plate that went on there. So great, that feels pretty solid in there now. Now what I will do in the future is a little separate switch to go on the front. What I'm going to have to do is keep the power button on the router, plug that straight in, and the plug's going to have to be my on and off switch for now. I'm sure that'll work just fine for now, but it will be safer to have an off on stop on here. So here we go. Router is in. Router's in, fence is done. I think we're ready to give it a go. This router table has turned out exactly how I wanted it, and I'm really pleased. And I also hope that it's helped you and inspired you to go out there and build your own router table. I will leave links to all the different parts that I bought for this, So if you wanted to, you could go and purchase all of those and you're halfway there to building your own table. Well, keep it safe, keep those fingers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.